welcome to Chapter 2 Club's Smart Woman's Guide to Breakups and Everything After. Today I'm here with certified professional coach and social worker, Rich Heller, and we're going to be talking about trigger management. Hello, Rich. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm well. Trigger management, especially during these times of COVID, I can see this becoming a real hot topic right now for a lot of people.
Yeah, when we're shaken out of our normal routines, it's easy to be triggered.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely many things that can trigger relationships, can trigger divorces, and just your environment. You know, you're having all these new confinements that have to deal with too. So can you give us?
Absolutely. And trigger management is directly related to our sense of safety and our sense of well-being. And when we find ourselves restricted, naturally, we tend to feel less safe.
Yes. So let's talk about some ways that, well, there's many ways people can be triggered, but let's talk about some ways that we can help ourselves not to get triggered and to kind of, you know, make things better.
Maintain.
Yes.
We all want to maintain.
Yeah.
And, I think it's less about not being triggered and more about what do we do when we are triggered.
Okay.
I mean, think about what is a trigger. A trigger is something that was, for most of us, installed at an early age. It's a defense mechanism. Usually triggers are installed somewhere between age 1 and 9 or even 16, somewhere in there. And it's a behavior that we learn to make ourselves feel safe in our environment of origin, like our families. But what happens is we get out of our families and the trigger is still there. So anything that reminds us of that situation where we created that mechanism makes it go off. Anything that looks like it. And the problem is that our unconscious mind always wears a certain colored glasses. So anything can look like our family even when it's not. So the trick is, number one, what's a way you can manage that reaction without going blah all over everyone around you.
And when you're in that moment, it's so hard to like stop yourself because
right. Because it's primal. You know, the trigger is some hardwiring. It's not only emotional, it's hardwiring in our brain. We've been going down that neurological path for years and years and years because it was trained into us in our family. That's what we did. And it's emotional. And so the funny thing about triggers is we can say, oh, I noticed that I'm doing that and I don't ever want to do that again. But because it's hardwired into it, well, soft wired into us, because we can, over time change that programming. It's so frustrating. It's like, oh my God, I noticed that I have this trigger and I'm doing it again. So The question is, how do you put something between this and these and the trigger?
Yes.
Yeah. And so the answer is, and this is sort of a tip, is that triggers are generated by our amygdala, which is the scientists call our reptilian brain. We can talk about this in a lot of other contexts also, but our amygdala is always looking for danger. It's always on the lookout. So like if you were out in the woods, you go, is that a tiger? Is that a lion? Is that a bear? Except that we're not in the woods anymore. So now it's still going though. So it's socially looking for, is that a big stick? Is that criticism? Is that, whatever your trigger is.
Right.
And the trick is to get out of that part of our brain. We got lots of parts of our brain. So here's the quick tip. If you practice mindfulness, meditation, or prayer, either all or one, it takes you to another part of your brain. So if you feel yourself going from 0 to 60, in a situation that doesn't seem to call for it, you're being triggered. It's about saying, first part is noticing it. And if you can notice it, then you are also in another part of your brain, a more rational part of your brain. And you can say, stop. Or if you don't feel capable of doing that, start developing a mindfulness, meditation, or prayer practice 4 or 5 times a week. And you'll begin to develop the ability to do that. Because mindfulness, meditation, and prayer takes us to that other part of our brain that observes, that isn't hooked on survival. And it's super key in any kind of trigger management plan, a short-term or long-term. And then there's some other ways you can do it. Like when you've been triggered, what have you, when you've caught yourself, what are some things that have worked for you, for example?
Just kind of like taking a step back, but
Mm-hmm.
it's, I think the key is to catch yourself in that moment, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then take a step back, or if you get like an angry text message or something and you see it, it's not, you want to just like, quickly respond it right away and, go back. But then it's like, all right, no, I'm just going to like set that down. I'm going to go do something else, take a breather, and then I will regroup my thoughts and then go back into it.
Take a step back is
Yeah.
great advice. So, but you can do that at any point in the journey. You
Right.
can be triggered and your mouth starts going la 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 la, and you can still, and you can notice, and then you can say, excuse me, I'm having a moment. I need to take a step back. I need to go to the bathroom. I need to revisit this in a day or an hour, whatever you think it takes for you to regroup.
Right.
And that's, again, that's that part of you that's noticing that you're going on and that you're doing something that's familiar and that that doesn't work.
Right.
That, that's another part of your brain. That's your cerebral cortex kicking in. Stepping back is great advice.
Yeah. And, again, for me, and I'm sure for the viewers too, it's just challenging to stop yourself in the middle of it. That's the hardest, at least for me, that's the hardest part, is to stop yourself in the middle of it and then take a step back. But
yes. So the second tip is to be really patient and gentle with yourself.
yes.
Because realize that it is neurologically, that emotional response is neurologically wired in your brain.
Right.
And so the first part is of unwiring it, of untethering the trigger, is noticing that wiring and stopping yourself. And by stopping yourself, you automatically a small neurological change happens in your brain. And the next time that you may stop yourself a little earlier, and a small change happens, and it comes back a little earlier, and a small change happens. You have to be really gentle and patient with yourself. So step back and be super patient, because these kinds of changes most of the time don't happen very quickly.
Right. Yeah.
Unless some massive spiritual change happens.
Right.
And people have reported this, where all of a sudden they're just struck by something, they don't know what, and they go through a massive rewiring like that. And nobody really knows. Jung actually, one of the earlier psychologists, recognized that this actually happened. He actually tried to make it happen. He never could, but he recognized that this is a real phenomenon, that sometimes people are just struck by something that they can't explain, and everything changes for them forever.
Interesting.
That's very rare. Don't count on that.
That's very rare. So for the rest of us,
you can do a lot of praying.
I started yoga probably about 2 years ago, and I feel like that's helped me a lot too. And whatever your thing is.
Yeah, yoga is a form of mindfulness.
Yeah.
In fact, yoga was developed, the physical yoga postures were developed because the yogis wanted to be able to sit still longer.
Right.
So they started developing the postures so that they wouldn't get muscle cramps and they could sit longer. And what they found out was that it was a form of moving meditation. Mm-hmm. And so there's a mindfulness about that as well.
Yeah. I totally agree with the whole mindfulness prayer meditation. It's definitely helped me out a lot. And I hope that our viewers out there can adopt some new measures to help them too. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Rich, and talking about trigger management. And sign up for one of our workshops or check out our website for a plethora of resources on your journey for breakup and divorce. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you so much, Rich, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.